what's going on everybody, this is iAppleGeek3 and today I want to bring you guys my thoughts on Apple's latest iPod Touch, the iPod Touch 6th generation, and I'll be comparing it to the last generation iPod Touch, the iPod Touch 5th generation. Now, to get started, I did want to mention why so many people have thought these two devices are exactly the same, because the physical appearance is not very different. Both feature the same unibody aluminum design with a protruding camera lens and a Wi-Fi antenna on the back. Of course, we have our microphone and LED flash as well. Now, the only difference in physical appearance is the removal of the attachment for the iPod Touch Loop, which was a featured thing for the iPod Touch 5th generation when it came out in 2012. So really, what is the difference between these two devices? They look almost exactly the same except for a few new color options and the removal of the iPod Touch Loop. So I want to put that to the test in this video to show you what is truly different. To make this test fair, both the devices are running their 2nd generation firmware. So the original firmware for the iPod Touch 5 was iOS 6 and iOS 8 for the iPod Touch 6. So right now iOS 7 is on my iPod Touch 5th generation and iOS 9 is on the iPod Touch 6th generation. The iPod Touch 5 has an Apple A5 chip while the iPod Touch 6th generation has an Apple A8 chip. So there's a big difference in processing power. And I want to put that to the test right now. So let's go ahead and open up the camera app, and the iPod Touch 6th generation currently takes the lead. Looks like the iPod Touch 6th generation also is better at handling hard applications like YouTube or the App Store as currently shown here. So the iPod Touch 6th generation is more than it looks like on the outside. And is it worth buying? Well, that's for you to decide. It is definitely a great device to carry around to download games and other stuff you don't want on your main device, because this is such a cheap device at the same price that the iPod Touch 5th generation was, making it not only a great buy but also a cheap buy. So it won't break the bank if you're trying to give this to somebody for a gift, or you're just trying to start out in the iOS ecosystem before you buy a full-on iPhone or iPad. So this is a great device just for entering into the iOS ecosystem. So as you guys can see here, the web page loads are very quick on the iPod Touch 6th generation versus the iPod Touch 5th generation and many other music players like this one. So let's go ahead and load up apple.com and see which one takes the lead. So on 3, 2, 1, and the iPod Touch 6th generation was almost instantaneous at loading this webpage versus the 5th generation iPod Touch. So let's take a look at how they stack up against each other on paper. The iPod Touch 6th generation has a 1.1 GHz processor, while the iPod Touch 5th generation has an 800 MHz processor. The difference between the two is like night and day. The iPod Touch 6th generation has just about 6 times what the iPod Touch 5 could achieve. So graphical performance and general usage performance is actually very good on the iPod Touch 6. And when you think about it, that is really good for a $200 device. The iPhone is literally the most popular camera in the world, and the iPod Touch, not so much. However, it does have an iPhone-like camera, and I want to put to the test what has changed through this generation's update. The iPod Touch 6th generation has an 8 megapixel iSight camera, while the iPod Touch 5 has a 5 megapixel iSight camera. Both these devices are great at taking pictures in the daylight. However, in the nighttime or in a dark environment, the iPod Touch 6th generation currently wins, as you guys can see currently right here. The iPod Touch 6th generation does have a better megapixel count, so there will be more quality in each picture you take. Besides that, it also has auto image stabilization, which the iPod Touch 5 does not have. So not only does it pick up more detail, it also picks it up in a better way, as you guys can see right here. The iPod Touch 6th generation is also better at taking video because it takes in more light at once, and it records at 1080p 30 without any trouble at all, while the iPod Touch 5 only records at 720 30. The iPod Touch 6th generation is also capable of shooting slow motion footage. The iPod Touch 6th generation can process graphics and videos 10 times better than the iPod Touch 5th generation, so 3D gaming is much better on the iPod Touch 6. On top of that, it does have the new metal technology introduced in iOS 8 and now on iOS 9. So a lot of games will look much better, it'll have more particles in there, it'll just look much better in general if you were playing it on a metal supported device, just like this iPod Touch. This device measures in at 4.86 inches for its height, 2.3 inches for its width, and it's only a quarter of an inch thick, so it is very, very light in your pocket, weighing in at only 3.1 ounces. That's ridiculous. You put it in your pocket, you just literally forget it is there. So this is not like one of those devices where it is a brick sitting in your pocket. So that's why I said this is a very good portable device for taking pictures, for example. Of course, it has that new slow motion feature in there, and it has burst photos for the front and back camera as well. So this device is great for taking with you, for example, on a road trip, or if you're going somewhere really quick and you don't really want to take your iPad with you, this is a great device just to take with you here and there. Of course, it will get all the newest features of the newest updates because it has that Apple A8 chip and the M8 motion coprocessor, which makes it very efficient at doing its tasks. So it will probably support iOS 11 or 12 or whenever that comes out, so this is pretty much future-proofed. Now, the only other difference between this and the iPod Touch 5 on the outside is the different colors. You have hot pink, you have gold, and you have a royal blue. But if you prefer some of the classic colors like silver, space gray, and product red, you will not be able to tell this apart from an iPod Touch 5. So what do you guys think about this device? Is it worth buying, or did they really change enough in this device? Please let me know down in the comments section. I really do want to know your guys' thoughts on this. And of course, if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, that'd be great. And also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you guys do subscribe, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.